Xi stressed, it is important for us to efficiently restart the business and operation, ensure precise policy implementation, and make up the weaknesses. Premier Li Keqiang also stated the review and approval of major projects need to go through fast and green tracks to accelerate the process. Today, we'll focus on the restarting of business and operation of major invested projects. We have with us Director General Oh Hong from the Investment Department of NDRC, DDG Zheng Jian from the Infrastructure Department of NDRC, Inspector Song Qiuling from the Ministry of Finance, Director Liu Guohong from the General Office, and the spokesperson of the Ministry of Natural Resources to share information on the restarting of major invested projects, the issuance of bonds, and the use of lands. To take your questions. First, some updates on the epidemic. In the 24 hours of March the 20th, in provinces and municipalities in Xinjiang Production Construction Corp, newly confirmed cases 41, new deaths 7, all were Hubei cases. New suspected cases 36. On the day, newly cured and discharged from hospitals 590. Of medical observation 1,191. Severe cases were reduced by 173. As of 24 o'clock, March the 20th, according to reports from provinces, municipalities, cities, Xinjiang Production Construction Corp, remaining confirmed cases numbered 6,013, including 1,963 severe cases cumulatively cured and discharged from hospitals, 71,740. Cumulative deaths 3,255. Cumulatively reported confirmed cases 81,008. Remaining suspected cases 106. Cumulatively traced close contacts 685,866. Those that are still under medical observation 9,371. In Hubei province, no new confirmed case, no new suspected case, no remaining suspected case. Newly cured and discharged from hospital on the day 561, including 502 from Wuhan. New deaths 7, including 6 from Wuhan. Remaining confirmed cases 5,719, including 5,610 from Wuhan. Severe cases were 1,927, including 1,901 from Wuhan. Cumulatively cured and discharged from hospitals 58,942, including 41,891 from Wuhan. Cumulative deaths 3,139, including 2,504 from Wuhan. Cumulatively confirmed cases in the province 67,800, including 50,005 from Wuhan. Between the 24 o'clock hours of yesterday, newly reported imported confirmed cases 41, including 14 in Beijing, 9 in Shanghai, 7 in Guangdong Province, 4 in Fujian Province, 2 cases in Zhejiang, Shandong, Shanxi provinces, respectively, and 1 in Sichuan. As of 24 o'clock, March the 20th, cumulatively reported imported confirmed cases 269. From Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, cumulatively reported confirmed cases 408. From Hong Kong, SAR 256, 17 in Macau, SAR, 135 cases in the Taiwan region. For 3 consecutive days, there has been no local confirmed cases. In Wuhan, for 3 consecutive days. For other cities outside of Wuhan, for consecutive 16 days. And in provinces outside of Hubei province, for 9 consecutive days, there was no confirmed local case. Since the declaration of WHO of the pandemic feature of COVID-19, the imported case has increased to the current number, rapid increase of 165%. It is much quicker than the average global increase of imported cases, which stood at 98%. So we must guard against the imported risks to prevent against the second wave. Now we'd like to take questions. Please identify yourself before you ask your question. Journalist from the first row on the right side. Thank you. With CCTV, the financial channel, on the 17th of March, on the Standing Committee meeting of the State Council, it was emphasized that it is important to restart the major projects to deal with the problems of shortages in labor and material supply and also funding shortages. So my question is, what is the general situation of the restarting of business and operation in the major projects across the country? I'd like to ask DG Oh Hong from NDRC to take the question. Thank you for your question. We'd also like to thank journalists' concern and interest on these major projects impacted by the epidemic. The key projects have faced certain difficulties. With joint efforts, there has been an increasing rate of the restarting business. According to our statistics, as of 20th of March, 89.1% of the 11,000 plus key projects have restarted. However, there has been some imbalances among different industries and localities. Some projects are gradually getting restarted. In southern China, 98.1% of the major projects have been restarted. In northern China, the restarting rate was only 63%, relatively lower. Apart from the impact from the epidemic, it was because in northeast and northwest of China, some of the projects were gradually in the process of going back to operation. Major railway, highway, waterway projects have seen a resumption rate of 97%. Beijing to Xiong'an Highway and other key highway projects have been restarted and accelerated. Airports resumption rate was 87%. The third phase of Xiaoshan Airport in Hangzhou has been ongoing during the Spring Festival. Major water infrastructure projects have seen a resumption rate of 86%. The Dianzhong potable water projects have also seen its resumption. Key energy projects have been restarted. China-Russia Eastern natural gas pipeline, the middle section, have been restarted. The Wudongde power station, with a total investment of 95 billion, have been restarted. BMW's biggest manufacturing facility, the Shenyang plant, after its resumption on the 27th of March, is being accelerated. Other major projects are also in the process of getting back to its original order. Next question, please, journalist from the first row on the left side. With the China Daily, railway, airport, and highway projects have a widespread influence. I'd like to ask the restarting of operation of these transportation infrastructure projects. If all of the major projects can go back to normal, what are the difficulties to be addressed? I'd like to ask DDG Zheng Jian to take the question. Thank you for your question. I'd like to focus on three aspects to answer your question. First, the resumption of transportation projects have been following the schedules. Second, the full resumption of business is now well conditioned. Third, we are confident to realize the annual target of transportation projects. Usually, it involves a big investment scale and an intensive labor workforce. Therefore, to support the restarting of business and operation, we've set up horizontal and vertical coordination.
Every day we have the coordination. Up to now, NDRC has already ensured 97.8% of the 533 key projects for the operation recovery. And as we have just mentioned, more than 7,000 construction sites have resumed operation, and 500,000 construction workers are starting their work. So we are continuing for the next step to resume the operation. First, we will ensure the adequate funding. The central budgets have been constantly provided fundings, and 80% of the planned budget have been implemented, engaging 54 billion RMB yuan. Secondly, in terms of the approval and review procedure, together with the sister agencies in the central government and the local government, we will accelerate the review procedure to ensure the smooth implementation of the projects. Now let's continue the Q&A. On the left, the first row, the lady reporter, please. Thank you. With Hong Kong-China review, at the moment, the economic downward trend has loomed in the air, and how can you ensure the adequate funding? And what are the measures adopted by the Ministry of Finance to ensure adequate funding for the major projects? We will have Madam Song to answer the question. Thank you. Since the outbreak of the epidemic, the Ministry of Finance has accelerated efforts to invest in the key projects. On the other hand, we have worked out policies to ensure the smooth recovery of the operation. In summary, three major efforts. First, accelerated the funding of the key projects. The transfer payment has been up by 12 percentage points year on year. And second, we also draw funding from tax revenue for 250 billion RMB yuan, and also large sums of funds from various funds that we have set up. So we are trying to ensure adequate funding for the key projects. And also for railway construction, we've already made more than 20 billion RMB yuan for the construction of the railways, of the railway lines. And also, we have already worked out plans to use the treasury bonds, and the plan has already been developed, and the newly increased local bond reached over 1 trillion, and also for specialized treasury, also more than 1 trillion. All of these earmarked bonds are dedicated to the infrastructure projects. Also, we have the tax rebates policies. These policies are designed to reduce the taxation burden of the market players and create a favorable environment for the business of recovery. For the next step, also 3 initiatives or efforts are planned. First, we will timely allocate the earmarked funding, and second, we will monitor and ensure the adequate allocation of the budget so that the localities will be assisted with adequate funding for business recovery. And thirdly, with the existing subsidizing policies and taxation preferential policies, we are to implement these policies. At the same time, we also wish to encourage the private sector to invest more in the infrastructure projects. Okay, let's continue. On the left, on the second row, the second gentleman, please. With Phoenix satellite TV, compared with the common projects, what are the different features of the key major infrastructure projects? Thank you. We will have Mr. Oh Hong to answer the question. Thank you for your question. For the key major infrastructure projects, we can see that they are affected by the epidemic, and it is not so easy to recruit or enroll adequate employees or workers, and also the supply of raw material is faced with some challenges. And the third is the scheduled plan is delayed due to the epidemic. So the central government has worked out several measures. For instance, we have conducted various video conferences to instruct and guide the localities to resume the key infrastructure projects. And second, we have provided online services to give approval to such projects. Secondly, we are making every effort to have sound coordination. We have already set up a daily coordination mechanism to address the outstanding issues. And thirdly, we use the transfer payment to support the urgently needed infrastructure projects like the Huoshenshan Hospital and the Leishenshan Hospital. The key areas and the key projects will be given priority in terms of the government support. Now, with the efforts for these key projects, the work resumption rate was 2.3% in early February, but now this percentage has been increased to 89%. Let's continue. On the left, on the right, on the second row, the first gentleman reporter, please. Thank you. With CNR, with the recovery of the operation and the business, will there be any bottleneck in terms of the approval for the use of land? We will have DG Liu to answer the question. Thank you. Thank you very much for your interest and care for the land review procedure. Indeed, the current land review procedure takes a fairly long period of time. This is a result of various reasons, such as the various steps engaged and also some duplication in terms of the functions of the various agencies. So we are advancing the reform in this regard. In particular, since the outbreak of the epidemic, we have tried to optimize the review procedure, and we make every effort to ensure that the procedure can be accelerated, and the newly revised law on land management states that while abiding by the laws and regulations, the appropriate measures will be adopted to optimize land management.
The items of reforming land management law will be submitted to National People's Congress for its further adoption. The new land management law came into effect on January the 1st. According to this new version, the cities, municipal government authorities at this level can be delegated the power, or the provincial government can be delegated the power to review and approve the land use purposes. It was proposed that the provincial government should be delegated more power. The State Council did some further study on 12th of March. It was decided that the provincial government will be delegated power for the review and approval of two other items. And these were delivered to the provincial and the municipal governments. The original review and approval items under the approval authority of the State Council or central level government will be delegated further to provincial governments on a pilot basis, so as to enhance the efficiency of review and approval by authorities. Second, the combination of policies will further help to streamline the procedures for review and approval. After this round of reform, the original items for review and approval in city management and land management will be combined. Multiple permits will also be combined to streamline the procedures of review and approval and further enhance the efficiency. Third, we've initiated some special procedures, innovated working method, and provide online services. We use the remote sensing to replace some of the original outdoor field survey. We've also coordinated with other departments to provide some coordinated, streamlined services so as to provide immediate and precise services for land use for the resumption of major infrastructure projects. Reforms were also made to change the prerequisite environmental commitments to later stages so as to accelerate the process. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the third row on the right side. With the China Media Group CCTV, we've found that some major infrastructure projects are still faced with the difficulties of labor or raw material shortages. Some of the reasons were because of the impediment in transportation. What were measures adopted to facilitate transportation? Will there be innovative measures adopted further? I'd like to ask DDD Zheng Jian to take the question. Thank you for your question. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 epidemic, transportation has played a major role in ensuring the supply of medical and other resources and transporting laborers back to workplaces. Even when the situation was the grimmest, there were no problem or impediment with the backbone transportation. The major problem occurred in the last mile or even the last 100 meters. Therefore, we took 3 steps. First, we established a highly efficient coordinative mechanism and worked on the impediments. Some emergency supplies were faced with the problems of no access or blocked access to Hubei province, so we collaborated with other departments and leveraged the existing equipment and established the 5 stopovers or transits so as to realize contactless transfer of materials. Also, we've collaborated with the SF Express company and allocated N95 masks to Hubei province. We dealt with the major impediments and the blocks to shorten the transportation time. We've also facilitated the restoration of normal transportation orders. We dealt with problems of roadblocks in the villages. We asked the localities to correct such arbitrary roadblocks. The quarantine stations have been removed. If conditions allowed, the blocked roads were reopened. The arteries and the microcirculation of the entire transportation network has come back to normal. Third, we've been engaged in coordination, connection of supply and demand, the mutual health certificate recognition, chartered trains and trucks were used to transport migrant workers back to workplaces. 300 trains have been used to transport the migrant workers back to their original workplaces across many provinces. Down the road, we will focus on the implementation of existing favorable policies, in particular the removing of the impediments and the stepping up of logistic transportation. We need to refine the policy measures and make precise transportation optimization services to transport migrant workers back to workplaces. We'll also leverage taxation and other monetary fiscal policies to support the process. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the right side. Thank you. With Shenzhen Satellite TV, to offset the impact from the epidemic and in consideration of local needs, the issuance of local bonds are important ways to alleviate the tension and introduce liquidity. Is there any deployment by the Ministry of Finance for the size of local bonds? I'd like to ask Inspector Song Qiu Liu to take the question. Some latest data to be shared here. As of yesterday, the new issued government bonds have reached 1.47 trillion RMB, 76% of the pre-allocated quota. General bonds, 380 billion, 69% of the total. Dedicated bonds, 1.03 trillion RMB, 79% of the total. There were several features for this round of issuance of local government bonds. First, an accelerated pace. As of yesterday, 9 provinces have completed the issuance of government bonds quota ahead of schedule. These 9 provinces included Beijing, Tianjin, Liaoning, Ningbo, Fujian, Jiangxi, Guangdong, Sichuan, Yunnan provinces and municipalities. So these 9 local governments have completed their local government bonds issuance ahead of schedule. Second, these bonds had a more reasonable term. The long-term bonds take up more than 80% of the total. As of yesterday, local government bonds had an average term of 16.2 years. Compared with previous years, the term of the local government bonds and the project duration were more matched. The bonds with a maturity of 10 years and above was issued at a value of 1.2 trillion RMB and above, with a percentage of more than 80%. All these government bonds were for infrastructure projects. As of yesterday, the incremental dedicated bonds stood at 1.3 trillion RMB, all for the railway construction, ecological conservation, forestry, agriculture, and landscaping projects. Meanwhile, the eligible projects. Capital value reached 120 billion RMB.
This 120 billion yuan can effectively expand the domestic investment and drive forward the economy. For the next step, Ministry of Finance will help the local governments to accelerate the issuing of the local bonds and urge the local governments and the relevant agencies or enterprises to use the fund and push forward the economy. Okay, let's continue on the right. On the second row, the lady reporter, please. Thank you. With Hong Kong Economic Herald, apart from the key major projects, what are the other investment encouraging initiatives? Sure, this is also a question watched closely by the society. For the next step, we will have the following measures, mainly in three aspects. First, to accelerate the recovery of the projects. At the moment, in most of the localities in China, it has become a very good time to restart the projects. So we will help the projects to resume the project implementation and help them to overcome the various obstacles like raw material supply. And second, there should be no bottlenecks remaining, like the household check or mutual recognition. We will make every effort to push forward the implementation of the major projects. And second, we will expand the effective investment on the projects to realize this year's economic growth target. It is of critical importance to attract investment and utilize the investment. So for the next step, we will expand the central budget for the investment and also increase and encourage the local government's investment in the various projects, and such as the redecoration or improvement of the existing old neighborhood residence buildings. And also we will encourage the private sector to invest more in these projects. And thirdly, we will advocate for the tailor-made investment rather than an extensive investment. We will focus on the weak links in the economic development and make every effort to achieve the poverty alleviation targets and strive for the proper development and sound development of the infrastructure. We will encourage the infrastructure development like the 5G network, and we will adopt the tailor-made measures to avoid excessive and extensive investment. Let's continue on the left with the China Economic Daily. Now, with the decentralization, how can the government avoid the potential malpractices or misuse of such decentralized power? We will have DG Liu to answer the question. Thank you. With decentralization or delegation of the power, we try to implement the central government's guidance to give more authority to the local governments in the land management. So this is not to release the control on the land management. The principles like the protection of the legitimate rights of the smallholder farmers remain unchanged, and the bottom line for urban development, the agricultural development, and the sound balance between arable land and industrial land remain unchanged. So with the power delegation, we will continue the principle that the ordinary construction projects should never make use of the arable land, which are permanently set for farming purposes. And with the delegation of powers of review, in specific cases, the local governments would be held accountable if they had any malpractices in the reviewing procedure. So this is the second aspect. The third aspect is that the new overseeing or oversight will be more powerful and more accelerated and efficient. The policies, the criteria will remain unchanged, and they will be used to regulate the practices at the local level. Secondly, we have the double random and one open principle to monitor and oversee the local approval procedure. Furthermore, we are now conducting the comprehensive monitoring and evaluation of the local practices. And such monitoring and evaluation will enable the State Council to dynamically adjust the power delegation. Let me very briefly share with you some data. Up to now, we have already set up a satellite remote sensing system. The Ministry of Land Resources now owns 10 satellites, and the satellites have a very high sensitivity. Any change above 2 meters of change can be quickly spotted by the satellite. So the delegation of power and improved monitoring capacity go hand in hand, and we will increase our service capacity. So this is a holistic approach, and of course we welcome the media to help us and help us to monitor the actual practices. Let's continue on the left, on the third row, the third lady reporter, please. Thank you. With Economic Daily, my question is about the local government's bonds. We know that the Ministry of Finance has already increased the quota for the local government's bonds. So how about the current development? We will have Madam Song to answer the question. Just now in my answer, I gave part of the answer to this question. The biggest issue is to make good use of the fund, as we have already increased the quantum.
So you are asking about the incremental part. The incremental amount needs to be approved by legal procedures. Besides, we need to report to National People's Congress. This is a statutory procedure According to the deployment of the State Council and the Party Central Committee, Ministry of Finance need to submit the necessity of incremental amount, and the actual amount has to be contextualized based on the general macroeconomic performance. More importantly, for this year, this has to be contextualized with the prevention control of the epidemic. And after we go through the statutory legal procedure, can we decide when and how much is this incremental amount? Thank you. That's the two questions. Journalist from the right side. Thank you. With China Natural Resources News, my question is, the projects are more we have seen an accelerated process in implementing certain projects as the epidemic is brought under control. So what are the measures to ensure the implementation of these projects? I'd like to ask Director Liu Guohong to take the question. Yes, land as the monetary support has to be provided for the major projects to be kicked off. Ministry of Natural Resources will step up two measures to provide land. First, they make a precise assessment of the land use squares. In the past, we divide the planned quota to different provinces and municipalities. The planned quota distribution may not be matched with the actual needs from localities. So this year, we have changed this old approach and to a new approach that the land will follow the needs. The actual needs from localities will be the basis of our allocation of land use. The projects with real benefits which need land will get land. With this reform in the deployment of the incremental land square meters will be more precise and more effective. Second, we've used incentive and restraints to revitalize the stocking land. This has been a major thorny problem in land use. Over the 2 years, we paid great attention to the revitalization of inventory land use and set up a system to connect the disposal of inventory land and the release of new pieces of land. In 2018, we have disposed. In 2019, we have disposed the approved, not supplied, idle land with a total acreage of 3.6 million mu. So in the past 2 years, the supply of land for projects have reached 1.8 times of the planned 5 million mu. Prior to 2017, there were also pieces of land with a total acreage of 14 million mu. So there is still a potential to use and revitalize the idled, approved lands without requisiting new land. So we can use and revitalize the existing pieces of land for these major infrastructure projects. Thank you. Last question for the day. Journalist from the fourth row on the left side, please. Thank you. With Economic News Daily, facilitation of 5G, AI, big data center, these have been our deployment of forward-looking projects. So what will be the policies adopted by NDRC to support these new projects? Thank you for your question, and thank you for your interest in the development of infrastructure. It is fair to say infrastructure is the cornerstone of economic development. It is of strategic and pioneering significance. including not only conventional but also innovative infrastructure. Traditional or conventional infrastructure included transportation, energy, logistics, and innovative infrastructure includes 5G, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and the central government pays great attention to infrastructure, conventional and innovative infrastructure included. The central government has issued opinions for facilitating new infrastructure development. Down the road, we need to better understand the features of a new infrastructure, make a good coordinated development between conventional and innovative infrastructure to optimize the entire picture. First, I'd like to focus on the making up of the weaknesses of conventional infrastructure, which has been developing rapidly over the past few years on a solid basis. However, down the road, we need to further enhance its quality and efficiency. The facilitation of the accelerated development of municipal utilities and transportation infrastructure have been more relevant now than ever. In Shenzhen, these projects, once approved, very quickly got off to ground. Today, Three Gorges Group, 3 protection projects got off to ground today, and these projects are in Wuhan. So there is still a huge need for conventional infrastructure projects, and for the innovative infrastructure projects, we should focus on its highly quality development. First, we need to strengthen the planning, improve the policy environment, innovate institutional arrangements, support diversified scenarios for application, make forward-looking guidance, consolidate the basis for its long-term development. Second, we need to have convergent and infusion development for coordinated use of resources, facilitate the efficiency of factor allocation. The innovative infrastructure projects can be the driving engine to upgrade traditional and conventional infrastructure and improve the quality of services. Internet, smart grid, smart transportation, smart city development will be gradually and orderly promoted to meet with an infrastructure system that can support smart society development. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank journalists for putting forward questions. I'd like to thank guest speakers for taking questions. Tomorrow at the same time, we will hold a press conference. We look forward to your continuous attention. With that, we conclude today's press conference. Thank you.